Thunder roared over the silent town as the richest cowboy in the county stepped into the dim hall, his boots echoing like a warning. Everyone watched him stop before the lonely outcast bride, a woman wrapped in shame and rumors she never deserved. He did not show pity, only a quiet strength that hid deep loneliness. In a low, steady voice he said, "I need a mother for my girls, and you need a home." Gasps filled the room, but she felt fear instead of relief. She knew her past secrets could shatter his world if revealed. Her heart pounded as she wondered why a powerful man would risk his name for a broken stranger. Outside, the storm grew wilder, as if fate itself waited for her answer. Knowing this single moment could either save three fragile hearts or destroy them forever before dawn revealed truth and sealed destinies irrevocably. He was known as the strongest millionaire cowboy in the valley, yet every sunset reminded him of the wife he had buried and the silence she left behind. He worked hard, spoke little, and raised his two young daughters with gentle care on a lonely ranch that felt too large for three broken hearts. The girls loved him deeply, but they still whispered for a mother at night. Far away lived a quiet woman rejected by everyone after a cruel broken engagement and false rumors that stole her honor. She walked through life unnoticed, carrying pain with quiet dignity and no safe place to belong. When fate slowly pulled her path toward the cowboy's ranch, neither of them knew their meeting would awaken hope, fear, and secrets that could either heal their lonely lives or reopen wounds they struggled to hide from everyone around them without warning or mercy again. That same cold evening, she reached the lonely ranch gate, carrying nothing but a small worn bag and a quiet courage she barely understood. The wind pushed against her as if warning her to turn back, yet she walked forward because winter had already stolen every other choice from her life. When he opened the door, surprise crossed his tired face, but he stepped aside with calm respect and allowed her inside without asking harsh questions. The girls watched from the stairs, curious and hopeful, sensing warmth in the stranger's gentle eyes. She introduced herself softly and asked only for temporary work until the storm season passed, promising silence, honesty, and gratitude for any small chance. He agreed, though doubt stayed hidden behind his steady voice, and he gave her simple tasks around the house and barn. Days moved quietly, yet something changed as laughter slowly returned to rooms that once held only echoes. The daughters followed her everywhere, trusting her kindness more quickly than he expected, and their smiles made his guarded heart uneasy. Outside the ranch, whispers spread through the town, claiming the outcast woman carried misfortune and hidden trouble. Each rumor reached his ears like distant thunder, shaking his confidence, but not yet breaking his quiet judgment. He began watching her more closely, noticing the way she protected the girls first and herself last during every small challenge. Still, fear whispered that trust could invite danger, especially when secrets lived behind her calm smile. One afternoon, he found her quietly mending old clothes for the children without being asked, and guilt touched him unexpectedly. He wondered whether kindness like this could be false, or whether he was simply afraid of needing her presence. Meanwhile, she sensed his silent doubts and kept her distance, speaking little, working hard, and preparing herself for rejection that might arrive any day. Nights became the hardest, because the girls clung to her stories and called her mother by mistake, then froze in fear. He overheard those moments from the hallway, feeling hope and panic collide inside his chest. Every passing day tied their fragile lives closer together, yet uncertainty tightened like a rope ready to pull them apart. The town planned to confront him soon, and he sensed a storm of judgment approaching faster than the winter clouds above his land. He stood at the ranch porch each evening, watching her guide his daughters with patience that felt both comforting and dangerous. Deep inside, he knew a single wrong decision could either protect their healing hearts or break them beyond repair. Yet he could not send her away, not while the girls finally slept without tears and the house breathed with fragile hope. So he remained silent, balancing trust and fear, waiting for a sign that would reveal whether fate had brought salvation or hidden disaster to his doorstep. And the night air carried unanswered questions that neither of them was ready to speak aloud. Yet while destiny watched in tense silence, the next morning arrived with an uneasy calm that felt too fragile to trust and he noticed how naturally she moved through the house, as if she had always belonged there, yet never allowed herself to truly settle. The girls greeted her with bright smiles and soft laughter that filled the rooms with warmth he had not heard since his wife was alive, and this sudden happiness should have comforted him, but instead it deepened the storm inside his mind because joy built on unknown truth felt dangerous. He began hearing clearer whispers from the town about the broken engagement, the harsh accusations, and the mysterious silence that followed her name, and each detail he learned painted a picture of a woman who had suffered deeply yet also carried shadows she never explained. One afternoon, he found an old letter hidden in the storage room where she had been cleaning, and though he did not open it, the trembling way she quickly took it back told him that painful memories were still alive behind her quiet strength. That night, he could not sleep as questions circled his thoughts, wondering if her past enemies could one day threaten his daughters, or if her silence was only a shield against more cruelty. Meanwhile, she sensed the distance growing in his eyes, and her heart tightened with fear because she had started to care for the girls as if they were her own, yet she knew she was only a guest standing on fragile ground. She remembered every rejection she had faced and convinced herself that once he discovered the full truth, he would ask her to leave without hesitation. Even as she worked harder than ever, cooking, mending, teaching the children with patience, she secretly prepared her heart for the moment she might lose the only place that had begun to feel safe. The tension between them grew heavier with each passing sunset. He spoke less, watching her with careful respect, while she answered politely, but never stepped beyond the invisible line she believed she must not cross. The girls, however, sensed none of this silent battle. They only saw a kind woman who listened to their fears, chased away their nightmares, and held their hands during storms. Their innocent trust slowly broke his defenses, yet doubt still whispered that love built too quickly could collapse just as fast. One evening, as he observed her comforting the youngest child after a bad dream, he realized how naturally she sacrificed her own peace to protect theirs, and this realization both moved and frightened him because it meant her presence had already changed their lives in ways he could not ignore. Still, the unanswered questions about her past stood like a wall between his gratitude and full trust, and as another cold night settled over the ranch, both of them carried separate fears, one terrified of being betrayed and the other terrified of being abandoned. While the house remained warm, yet heavy with unspoken truths, waiting for the moment when hidden secrets would finally demand to be faced without escape or denial. The winter storm arrived suddenly, whipping snow and ice across the ranch with a ferocity that made even the strongest fences groan, and inside the house, the youngest daughter's terrified scream cut through the howling wind as she slipped near the frozen pond, and without a second thought, she raced across the slippery ground, heart pounding, arms outstretched, braving the icy water to pull the child to safety, while the older daughter clung to the doorway, wide-eyed, helpless, and frozen with fear. And he watched from the porch, every muscle tight, every breath sharp, heart hammering with a mixture of terror and awe as she shielded the girls with a courage that left no doubt about the depth of her love. And when she finally emerged, soaked and shivering but alive, holding both children close, he realized in that raw, fragile moment that her devotion was pure and fearless, untainted by fear or selfishness, and something inside him broke free from years of guarded silence, leaving only a rush of emotions he had long buried. And without waiting another second, he strode into the snow-laden yard, gathered her hands in his, voice strong and trembling with emotion, announcing to the trembling daughters and the shocked household that he could no longer let fear or doubt dictate their lives. And with eyes blazing with determination and vulnerability, he said, "I want you to stay forever. I want you to be the mother of my girls. Will you marry me?" The world seemed to pause as the words hung in the freezing air, and even the wind fell silent for a heartbeat as the girls' faces lit up with disbelief and joy, tears glimmering in the storm, while she stared back at him, shivering not from cold, but from a whirlwind of shock, disbelief, and overwhelming emotion. The town's whispers, the rumors, the fears of her past suddenly clashing with the undeniable truth of this moment, and she felt the weight of years of loneliness and rejection lift in a single, breathtaking instant, leaving only the raw possibility of love, family, and safety she had almost given up hoping for. And as he waited, unblinking and unwavering, she saw the way his eyes reflected trust, respect, and a longing for a bond that went far beyond mere convenience. And she realized that no words could capture the depth of what had just happened, that a lifetime of cautious living had led to this sudden, terrifying, and magnificent leap of faith. And as the snow swirled around them, the children clinging to her side and looking up at both of them with wide, hopeful eyes, the town beyond the ranch boundary could only watch in stunned silence, realizing that the once lonely millionaire and the rejected outcast were rewriting their destinies in real time. And the storm outside mirrored the emotional tempest inside, a violent, beautiful chaos that demanded a choice. And in that moment, she understood that whatever her answer, her life had changed irrevocably. And as he lowered his hands and waited with unwavering patience, the future hung in delicate balance, alive with suspense, trembling on the edge of fear and hope, ready to be seized by the courage of hearts willing to risk everything for love, family, and belonging in a world that had long denied them both peace. She stood frozen in the snow, the storm whipping around her like the chaos inside her own heart, eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears as the words echoed in her mind. I want you to be the mother of my girls. And the weight of a lifetime of fear and rejection pressed down on her chest with every heartbeat. She felt the invisible walls she had built crumble slowly as the daughter's small hands reached for her, tugging at her coat and filling her with warmth that frightened her more than the freezing wind, because she had never allowed herself to trust that anyone could care so deeply without hidden motives. She remembered the nights she had cried alone, the whispers of the town that had followed her like shadows, the sting of false accusations, the countless doors that had closed in her face. And now this man, this lonely cowboy who had nothing to gain and everything to risk, was offering her not pity but a choice, a home, a family. And her mind screamed that she might be unworthy, that her presence could shatter the life he had so carefully built for his daughters, that accepting could be seen as a claim to something she had no right to. Yet the warmth of the girl's laughter, the safety of the cabin, and the intensity of his gaze filled her with a trembling hope that scared her more than the bitter cold. She could see the trust and longing reflected in his eyes, and it almost made her collapse into his arms, almost made her surrender. But fear gripped her heart because she had been broken before, and the possibility of breaking again was unbearable. She imagined herself failing, bringing scandal or pain into a household that had known peace only through his sacrifice. Yet at the same time, the thought of walking away, of returning to endless nights of loneliness and hunger, seemed impossible to bear. Her hands shook, her breath caught in icy lungs, and tears streamed freely down her cheeks as she realized that choosing him meant choosing life itself, choosing hope and love and the possibility of belonging somewhere truly safe. She hesitated, looking at the daughters clinging to her skirts, their innocent faces pleading for her to say yes. And in that fragile, agonizing pause, every memory of rejection and every scar of mistrust collided with the possibility of happiness, making her heart ache in a way she had never known. Finally, after what felt like an eternity suspended between fear and courage, she took a trembling step forward, then another, until she stood close enough to hear his steady heartbeat. And in a voice quivering yet firm, she whispered the word that would change all their lives forever. Yes. And the moment it passed her lips, the storm outside seemed to soften, the wind less cruel, the snow settling gently on the ranch, and he pulled her into his arms with quiet reverence as the daughters erupted in joyous squeals, wrapping themselves around both of them. And in that instant, the years of loneliness, fear, and pain melted away, replaced by a fragile but unstoppable hope, a love that had been tested by whispers, by storms, by doubt, and yet had emerged brighter, stronger, and more beautiful than either of them had ever imagined. And as she rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of a heart that had waited for hers, she finally understood that she was not a burden, that she was wanted, needed, and cherished, and that together they could face anything. And the ranch, once a place of quiet isolation, now pulsed with life, laughter, and the promise of a future built on courage, trust, and a love that neither fear nor time could destroy. And the entire world outside their doors could only watch as a broken woman and a lonely man became the family they had both always longed for, sealing their destiny in the cold winter night that had witnessed the most beautiful surrender of fear to hope imaginable. The storm finally passed, leaving the ranch bathed in the soft glow of a timid morning sun, and she stood at the doorway, no longer trembling with fear but filled with a quiet strength as she realized she was not a guest, not a burden, but the heart of a new family. And the cowboy watched her with awe and tenderness, knowing that trust had been earned through courage and love, not pity. And when the girls ran into her arms, laughing and crying at the same time, she felt a warmth she had never dared to imagine, a love so real it made her past pain shrink into nothing. And as they walked together through the snow-covered fields, hand in hand, their laughter echoing like music, the once lonely ranch transformed into a home pulsing with life, safety, and hope. And in that moment, every fear, every whisper of judgment, every scar of loneliness melted away, leaving only the undeniable truth that two broken souls, brave enough to risk their hearts, had built something unbreakable, eternal, and unforgettable.